Hello everyone, this is the second lecture on C++ programming language. On the first lecture, we actually covered the basic or fundamentals of the programming, like what is a program, why we need to write programs, what is a programming language, or who is the software developer or programmers, why we need to write programs, and also we talked about the C++ programming language, why we need to learn C++ programming language, and also we talked we can use C++ programming language for system development, like operating system like Windows, Mac OS, and also iOS or Android developed on C++. If it's not the complete part, the whole operating system, but the major parts, the main parts. And also we talked that C++ is used for game development, like one of the popular game engine like Unreal is written in C++ programming language, and the games like Call of Duty, PUBG Mobile, Angry Birds, those kind of games are developed in C++ language. And also we talked about like the GUI programs, like desktop application or graphical user interface applications like Adobe Photoshop, InDesign, Premieres are developed on C++. Also like some browser like Mozilla Firefox, Chrome browser is developed by C++ programming language. And also some top and popular or popular DBMS or database management system like MySQL Server or PostgreSQL, and also the MongoDB, which is NoSQL, is developed by C++. And also C++ is used in different domains like engineering, like industry, like cars, automotive, like TVs, like airplanes, and like air defense systems, like research and scientific. And also the two major library of Python like PyTorch and TensorFlow is developed by C++ programming language. And also the C++ programming language is for developing compilers or programming language like Java is written in C++. So that was the first lecture. In the second lecture, like it will be much more practical, because we need to go to the computer and write codes. So first, in this lecture we talk what tools you need to write programming in C++. So let me write here the tools we need to write C++ program. First, we need a computer. We need computer, maybe it is a desktop computer, or maybe a laptop computer. And it may be Windows or Windows or Mac OS or Linux. So actually, for writing a computer program like a C++ program, you need a computer. So it will be desktop or laptop. So what I suggest or recommend, at least 8 GB of RAM and also 256 GB of SSD. So that's the first thing, the first tools we need. The second tools we need, an editor. An editor, like, I'm talking much more fast or going much more faster because the time, So the second, tools we need an editor like Notepad in Windows, or Vim on Mac OS, or gedit, I think, in on Vim on Linux and gedit on Mac OS, I think. So we need an editor to write our programs. So the third thing, we need a compiler, because we talked about C++ programming language is middle level language. It is near to machine language, and the computer CPU understand only the machine language, zeros and ones. And the programs which were written first when the computer were invented in 1940s was written by it contains a collection of 0 and 1s, and the computer CPU only understands 0 and 1. And writing on 0 and 1 on low level language programs are so difficult to write this kind of programs on lower level language, because imagine the Windows operating system has 70 millions of lines of code, 70 millions. The same way Mac OS, the same way, if you write, if you solve an easy task with C++, with low level, language like machine language, which is called binary language, maybe it is easier. But if you do a a real world projects, and with millions lines of code. So you cannot code with 0 and 1s. It's difficult, time consuming, and no one knows how to do it. Then the programmers, developed another programming language, which was assembly, which is easier. They included some words, human words like move, like sap, like add for addition, sap for subtraction, like mal for multiplication. And that was, then they developed high-level language like, Python, Java, C#, such kind of things. But we see C++ is in the middle, because C++ can have direct access to the computer hardware like memory, and it's efficient and it's used for high performance applications. So that's C++ is everywhere. So we need a compiler. We write the source code in like a C++ source code here, a C++ source code here, and we need the compiler, and we save this code as .cpp. Like suppose hello.cpp. Any program we write, when we save any program we write in C++ and we save it, the extension is CPP for C++, hello.cpp. And then we need a compiler, the C++ compiler, which convert this source code, C++ source code, which is human readable code, to the machine language, like the 0s and 1s. And we need a compiler. So for Windows we have like G++ compiler, like the C++ compiler is GNU, GNU compiler, which is GNU was a project which started in 1978 and developed C++ compilers. So we need a G++ compiler. Like if you want to compile a C++ source code, which is hello.cpp, you simply write like G++, then name of the file hello.cpp. Then the compiler converts this file to an executable file, like a.exe. So that file is this file a.exe is executable file, which computer CPU understand and execute that. So this is the tools you need to start writing programming on C++. Also in real world we don't use the editor in real world application, or developing in production environment. We never use the notepad, because it's not a simple calculator or a simple task to solve, because we develop a library management system, we develop a system for the university, we develop a system for controlling the robots, we develop system controlling the IoT, Internet of Things, like LEDs, like security cameras. We develop systems which millions of lines code, like control the airplane, control the like the drones, or the rocket which we fire to go to the space, for scientific research. So those programs are we cannot write those programs in editors, because so we have IDEs for solving that problem. So we have IDE. We have IDEs, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. And the good things about this environment. And the good things about this IDEs, they include everything. When you download an IDE and install in your system, they include, the C++ compiler, they include, the editor, which you write your code, the C++ compiler, which compile and execute the codes. They contains, formatting, they contains line numberings, like they make your job as a programmer to write programs much faster, much accurate. And if there is an error in your code, or you forgot some semicolon or a bracket, a parenthesis, there will be an underline. So it shows that, hey, something is missing here. So it makes debugging process, which is, finding, errors in your program and fixing much easier in this, software. So IDEs are software which makes the programmer jobs or writing programming writing applications much easier. So we have some popular IDEs for C++. The first one is CodeBlocks. CodeBlocks. If you search on the internet CodeBlocks, so you can find the information about CodeBlocks. CodeBlocks are open source and free to download. So if you want to write your C++ code, so you can download the CodeBlocks. It's free and it's open source. And it has a built-in compiler, C++ compiler. Second, we have Visual Studio from Microsoft. Visual Studio Community Edition, okay? Visual Studio Community Edition, which is free from Microsoft. And this also included it's a powerful IDE which has everything like built-in compiler for C++, built-in text editor, built-in text formatting and all this stuff. We will see all of them. And the third one we have Cline, which is from the JetBrains company. Cline is also used for C++, programming. So these IDEs are very popular IDEs, so you can download and use them. So when we start programming, so we need these tools. And now it is time. I do not talk much more, and let's go to the computer and see how we can, write our first program in C++, how is the structure of a C++ programming language, and how we, compile and execute. And also, we also install the CodeBlocks. We also install the Visual Studio Community Cline, also the Cline, because if you work in a company, so based on the company requirements, they may use, Visual Studio Community Edition or Visual Studio. So you need to know how to create project and how to write C++ program on the Visual Studio. Or in another company, if you work, they use CodeBlocks, or in another company, they use Cline. So let's go in the system and let's do practically, our first C++ program. So now I'm on my Windows computer. So let's start by downloading the C++ compiler. So in Windows, I have my Notepad. So I have my code editor. So we just need to, download and install the C++ compiler. So I open my browser and I type here. The C++ compiler for Windows is called, G++, which included in a package called MingW. So you write MingW for Windows on your browser. MingW means, minimalistic GNU for Windows, or GNU for Windows, which is, this package contains a C++ compiler on the first, website. So click on the link and it will open another page. So what we need to do is download, click on the download button. And after 3 seconds, the download will start. Yes, the download is started and I already, download it here. So I minimize, or I can close my, browser. I don't need anymore. So I just open my download folder. So I go to the download folder and I can see there is the C tab of my C++ compiler. So I just open this. Yeah, so I want to install. Yes, continue. So the installation starts and it will install all the it has C compiler for C++. It is it has compiler for other language and for some other programming language as well. And this is a MingW was part of project which started on 1978 as a GNU project for developing the C++ compiler. So we need to download this one and we need to install. So I click continue. Okay, from this page, we need to, if you can see here, we need to select this C++ compiler, the GNU. You see here, C++ compiler. We click on that one. And also we need the basic MinW installation. So you click on this one as well. Mark for installation, mark for installation. So we need two things: a basic MinW installation, mark for installation, then MinW32 GCC G++, you see, and you mark this one for installation. You just click and it says mark for installation. So we didn't need anything for other compiler or Fortran compiler. These are other languages or Objective-C compilers, So we only need two things, Uh, if you want, you can install, like MingW developer tools, but we only need, C++ compiler and also the basic, basic MingW installation. So here you can click, like apply changes. Yes, apply. Now it's, downloading those compilers from, SourceForge website. We only, selected the C++ compiler, which we needed. We don't need anymore because this is a toolkit, like, you can see the Ada language. Ada is a programming language. Fortran is a programming language, like, we don't need those compilers. We only need, the C++ compiler. So now they're downloading and extracting and installing. So we can use in our system. It's not difficult, like we just wait. So the installation will be, finished. Then we go and write our first, C++ program. Yeah, so now it's completed and close. So if you can see, now we have those compilers. So if we go to and check in your system, if I write here CMD and open command prompt and I write here J++, enter, you see, it says J++ is not recognized because we installed the G++ compiler, the C++ compiler, which is called J++, G++. So we need to introduce in our system. So what I do, I go to the my PC, then I go to local disk C, and I can see here MainW folder is created. When you install the C++ program, it creates a folder called MainW, main GW, and we go to the bin folder, which is binary files. Binary files, we can see here the G++ compiler. So we need to introduce I introduce this path to the operating system, to the Windows, so it can execute and it can recognize that this is the C++ compiler. So you just select and copy this path, and then you can come here and write here environment variables. When you click on that one, so this page will be opened for you. So now we go to the the environment variables. Computer name, we don't need that, or we are advanced, you must be login, performance, like setup and recovery, desktop, but we have here the option for environment variables. So we click on that one. And now in the system section, we have two sections here. One is user variables, which is, for users, and one is for system, for all. So we need to find a path. You see a variable called path, and it has a value. So I can click edit. Then from here, I can click new, and I just put, the path or paste the path of our, compiler. So just okay, okay, and okay. And now if I open my CMD, and type G++, let's check. It says G++ needs, compilation terminated. So it means the C++ compiler is installed in our system. So let's go and write our first program in C++. So I create a folder here in desktop. So let's create a folder here, new folder, and I put name C++ programming. Okay. I created this folder because I need to put all my files in this folder. So what I can do now, I have my notepad here. So I again open my notepad. Notepad, great. I open the notepad, and from here I can start writing my code. So we start writing the code. Ash include iostream. This is the first line of code in our C++ program. Include means you're adding something in your code, actually. So this is, this line is, means that this command means that you're adding an iostream library. iostream library stands for input and output library. Input slash output stream means if you write, a code needs to, display something on screen. So it's called the output. And if you get input information from user, that's called input. So in this program, which I need to write, and show an hello world on the screen, so I need to include this library. iostream is a C++ library, and we need to include this in our source code file. So now we have, in another line, we write using name namespace std. This is the C++ standard library. This is C++ standard library, and it includes all the C++ built-in libraries. So we need to include this one in our programs, this library. So after that, our program starts with main function, integer main, and the function is a body. So we open by curly braces and we close by curly braces. So this is our main function. So inside the main function, I write here a command cout hello world. So this is a C++ program, and also we return 0. So let me explain. This is the basic structure of, a C++ code or program. We start from, including or adding a library of the C++ called iostream or input output stream. Means if in your program you write a code to take input from user, so you need to include this library. Or you want to show something on the computer screen, you need to include this library. So you include this library inside, the list ensemble or the angel symbol. Okay, so this is a library iostream. And then in another line, you using namespace std. Std is a C++ standard library. We need to include this one in our all C++ programs because it contains the C++ program definitions, built-in libraries, the packages, everything which is needed for a C++ code to write. So everything is inside this library. After that, we have a function called main. The name of this function is main because the starting, the execution of a C++ program starts from a main function. This is the entry point of our programs. And this function has a return value, a return type. int is, you know, int is, integer. Integer, we say values like 12. We say values like, like this, an integer value. And also we may have a minus, minus 444. They are the integer values, integer numbers. So when you write when you develop a system like a calculator, you may have different functions. A system is consists of different functions. Like a calculator may have you implement a function called addition, you implement another function called subtraction, or you implement another functions, or multiplication. But when you implement a function like addition, it takes numbers, and that functions, process that numbers, adding those numbers together and give you a result. And if you put in front of that function the return type integer, it will return the result as integer. So the main function also return a 0, which is an integer value. And this return is meant to tell the operating system that this program is executed successfully. And every function, when you see, they have a parentheses. When you see in a C++ program, suppose you see something inside the function like this, add here, like inside your program, if you see something, you know, like this, you just remember the parentheses shows that the addition is a function. So after that, the body of our program starts with curly braces and ends with curly braces. So inside these brackets, our code goes inside this bracket, the main code. And any code outside of this code main function will not be executed. Any code we write in C++, it should be inside the main function. So first we have a statement called cout. Cout is a function which is inside the IOStream library. And what is doing that, it says character output, means take this text which is inside double quote, and always we put our string or text inside double quote, and every C++ program ends with semicolon, or every statement in C++, or every commands in C++ ends with semicolon. And this tells that show the hello world in computer screen. The cout is a function, and then we have insertion operator. This is called insertion operator. It means take this hello world, which is a text, insert on the output on the screen of a computer. Now we have written, the C++ program, write our first code, our first program. Now we need to, compile and run this program. What we need to save this program first. So go to the file and say save, and then from here name the program. But first, save as type, change this to all files. And now I save this program as hello.cpp. Every C++ program you write, you need to, the extension of that file should be CPP. It means C++. This is a C++ file. If you have an MP4 file, it means that's a movie file, a video file. If you have a, .html file, means that's a browser file. So now what I do, I save this inside my, C++ programming folder in the desktop, and I put it the name hello.cpp, and I save it. When I save it, I go to this folder. I can see here hello.cpp. And what I can do now, this is C++ file. I need to compile this code and run what is the output. So on that program, I just have one statement. I told the CPU as programmer that print this hello world for me. So what I do, I open my CMD here. You just select, the bar here, the app bar, and type here CMD. And now the CMD is opened on this folder. And now I write here J++, now hello.cpp, and I enter. When I enter, it says there is an expected error. It says integer, like, the numbers we added. You see those numbers. But let me go and check what is the errors. Yeah, we have errors because we ported these things. I just explained that one, for you. So now I remove those things. If you see, the C++ compiler detects the errors. If there is an error, you forgot it something, you forgot the semicolon, you put it extra numbers. I put it those numbers because I explained the integer. So now what I do, I save again. Save. And now we go back and execute our programs. Now I go here and I just, enter. And now our program is successfully executed because those numbers were not part of the program. I just wrote those numbers, put it there as a, explanation. So now if you check, there will be another file. Hello, you see a.exe. This is an executable file, which is, executed by CPU, and CPU understand the content of this file. Now we need to, uh, execute this file. So I write here a.exe and enter, and it shows hello world. Hello world. The instruction or the command we wrote it is, hello world is shown on this computer screen. So if we can change the content, like the content of that file, and now I delete the executable file. And now what I can do here, I write here, instead of hello world, I write hello, welcome to C++ world. And now I save this file again. I change, I save, and now I go to my CMD. I go to my CMD. I open my CMD here, select, and now open, and I see G++. Now the name of the file is hello.cpp. And now I have another option, like I can use, dash O for, or, and then I write here like hello. Hello.exe. Why I use this? Because any program you use in C++ and compile it like G++ hello.cpp, it will automatically create a file a.exe. If you compile another program, so it will override the content of previous program. It will always create a.exe file. So if you want to create your own file, hello.exe, like hello or whatever, first C++ cpp.exe, whatever name you give. So you use dash O option. Now I enter. And now if we go there inside the folder, you see hello.exe. So now if I want to execute the program, so it compiled successfully, hello.exe, enter, and it says, hello, welcome to the C++ world. So this was our first C++ program. How we, download and install the C++ compiler, how we, write our C++ program, first C++ programs, and how we compile and execute a C++ program. And we saw the structure of a C++ program. So I explained, you just don't worry about this now if you don't understand. So just write this code, and whatever I did, you need to do. And then we see in another video. In another video, I will show you how we can download the IDEs like Visual Studio. We go first for code blocks, then we use Visual Studio, then we use the client ID from JetBrains. So we will use all of them in another lecture because this video will become lengthy if I use those. So thank you again for joining in this lecture.